spring football has come and gone, and one guy that partied all weekend long, and I'm not kidding. It was Friday, it was Saturday, and now
I don't know if I partied.
Dude,
I hung out.
I saw you Friday night. You look inebriated. You looked hammered.
What?
Oh, yes. I saw a picture of you hugging.
You weren't there.
I wasn't there, but, I know you probably, there's only one other person who knows you better than me, and that's probably your wife and your kids. But there was a picture of you in a group hug with your other pipeline members, and I'm like, oh, Rob's feeling no pain. I've seen that look in my basement.
You realize that was at the very start of the night.
You look
I hadn't even had a Kros Light at that point. That's like when Pink or Shakira goes out on stage, like for the big concert, and they have they got all the grips, the backup singers, the band, they're all in the big circle, and they do the little prayer chant thing, and then they talk about how much love they have for each other, and they're going to make the world a better place through music, and then they go out onto the stage to perform. That was our thing. That was us.
That was you?
That was us.
That was you. You as rock stardom. So Rob's been on location. He was at Hale Varsity on Friday night for the Pipeline event. We'll get into that. He was at the spring game yesterday, and got to hang out with Trev Alberts. Got to hang out in the players' lot for some tailgating, and he was shocked by the type of cars that were in the parking lot. We'll get to that. We're also recording today at Kros Strain Brewing in La Vista, and
whence all good beer flows.
Yeah, so we took some shit last week because Aaron Graham was on the show, and there were some people. Craig from Atlanta was disappointed in us because he gave us some really good beer from Atlanta.
Dude, we crushed his beer.
Well, we only had 2 of the cans. We had 2 cans of his beer, and then we drank, and then you brought the Pseudo Sue. And then Aaron was drinking the Busch Light. And we got a lot of people really popping off on the YouTube channel saying, really, Busch Light? But that was a 2-hour podcast, and we crushed a lot of Bud Light.
Yeah, but he is not an extravagant taste guy when it comes to beer. Which is fine. I mean, hey, you drink what you like. But it's like you heard him. I brought in that 12-pack of Busch Light, popped it down on the counter. First thing out of his mouth, he's like, "Ooh, blue yummies." Yeah,
see, some people they're simple that way. They know what they like and they're going to drink it, right?
Well, if it comes to your basic garage fridge, American corn malted beer, whatever you want to call it, I'm a Kros Light guy. That's what I've always drank.
What are you drinking today? So I already had the Grape Crush.
How was that?
It tastes, you've ever had Orange Crush and Grape Crush pop? Well, that's what that was, except it had 5% alcohol in it.
It was alcoholic bubble yum.
Yes, and it was very sweet. I'm glad I had one. I don't think I could have more than one. I moved on. I'm staying in the fruit beers today. I went from the grape, and now I'm drinking the peach.
Peach. The sour.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Now
I thought about that one.
You're going a little heavy for me today.
Well, I got a what is it? A Mo Nectar Mo Problem.
Yeah.
So it's a hazy. Hey, is it New England IPA?
What?
The Mo Nectar one.
So he's talking to Jeff Hardy from Kros Strain. So it's an experimental IPA. So you're in that medicine world, so you're doing the experimental stuff.
I think the experiment's over. Yeah, it's a success.
Then you told me to go ahead and get a backup.
Well, I didn't want to get up and walk around during the podcast. So I had to get a juice and desist, which is it's like the throat punch of beer.
Well, that's 9.4% alcohol.
It's a sipping beer.
Yeah. So let's start with.
We could go 3 hours. You don't know.
Oh, but that's no. I do know we can't go 3 hours because Owen has band practice later on. So he's like he's
over there nodding.
He's like, we got stuff to do a little bit later on. I'm like, oh, we could do that. Let's start with Saturday. We got Friday to get to, but let's start with the Saturday. Yesterday was the spring game. I got to be honest with you, Rob. I like the rules that Coach Matt Rule used yesterday, and that was contact on the quarterbacks, real live play action.
It was a full scrimmage.
Yes.
It was back to what we did when we played, where you had the full contact. You run it like a game. You run it like downs. And when we did that, it was a true. You'd start off. One team would take the ball. I got to be honest, it's been long enough. I don't remember if we did like a true kickoff and then took the ball, but I mean, we operated it like a true game, and if you got stopped on downs, you'd punt, and the defense would come in, and you would alternate between first string and second string going against each other throughout the game. And so that was kind of it was a nice way to do it because it really, truly kind of mimicked a full game and gave you that contact. Now, we did that once a week during spring ball when I played. So you'd have 2 or 3 practices during the week. So you had 15 practices total, which is still the rule now. So you'd go 2 or 3 practices during the week, scrimmage on Saturday. Do that 4 times, and you got that month of spring ball. So but we always had those Saturday scrimmages were always these full contact, full live scrimmages each week. So you would put in some offense, you would go and do those practices during the week, installing stuff, working the evaluation of the players, and then you kind of go out and test it out every Saturday. So you'd have that full contact scrimmage every Saturday, and I felt like you got a better feel for what players were capable of doing. I mean, if you went through 4 scrimmages, and the spring game was always just that last scrimmage at spring ball, but we ran all those scrimmages pretty similarly, and so by the end of that month, you had 4 really good opportunities as players to make a mark. You had 4 really good opportunities for the coaches to evaluate guys and kind of see what they had. So I like the way they did it. I haven't liked it as much in the past just because I think when you're not doing it that way, it makes it really, really hard to really evaluate what you've got from a player standpoint. So that was something that I appreciated Rule bringing back, just because, like I said, I'm a full contact guy. You got to do some of that in order to really have that realistic look at the players. You know, before we go any further, I do want to say that the Doc Talk podcast is presented by Betfred Sports. If you have not started your betting journey yet, of course, Betfred Sports located all over the country. They just opened up their brand new sportsbook in Las Vegas at the Virgin Hotel. You can download the Betfred Sportsbook app, use it in Iowa especially. We're recording in Omaha. All you have to do is drive across the river and place your bets. It's very simple. Go to Trav's Strip Club. You can go to the Spearmint Rhino, because half of the Spearmint Rhino is actually in the state of Iowa. You can park right there and make your bets. So make sure to use Betfred Sports. Right now, when you open an account in Iowa, bet your first $50, you get $111 of free Fred bets, and then up to $200 or up to 5 or 50% of your losses, up to $200 per week for the first 5 weeks by using Betfred Sports. You know, I think a lot of people expected miracles, or I don't know what they expected with Matt Rule coming in and being the head coach. But, you know, what we saw yesterday in the spring game for Nebraska was, it wasn't perfect by any means. It wasn't pretty. You had what? 8 turnovers. 8 turnovers. You had the ball on the carpet a lot. Kicking game still not where it needs to be. I still think this team and this coaching staff is a year away from seeing anything tangible. I mean, I still think if you get to a bowl game this year, if you get to 6 wins, that's exceeding the expectations. I think for most fans, if you get to 6 wins and get to a bowl game, I think people are going to be ecstatic. Yes. And it's awfully easy to, I mean, everybody talks about drinking the Kool-Aid, and I think it is incredibly easy to do that. You see some big wins in the recruiting game. They picked up Willis McGahee the 4th. I mean, if you remember, Heisman candidate running back from Miami who was on that, was it the 2000 and 2001 Miami teams. Just an amazing talent. So, I mean, you're seeing things like that happen. You're seeing some of these other recruits he's getting. You're seeing kind of a little bit of a newer system and a newer methodology in terms of how they practice. I'm thinking about things like just the stuff we just talked about with the higher levels of contact. And those are things that I think are going to pay a lot of dividends going forward. But yeah, you're right. You got a new staff. These guys have been around each other for a few months. That's it. In terms of actual real hands-on work, they've got a month under their belt. They got 15 practices. That's all. So you're not going to really see, I think, something really, really tangible for a couple of years. Now, when you look at where Rule's been before, go back and look at Temple. Temple, they were doing kind of okay before Rule hit the door there. You had the guy in the tie went to Miami. Who is it?
I even forget his name. He didn't last very long at Miami.
No, but anyway, I mean, my point is Temple was doing okay prior to Rule getting there. Rule got there. They had a little bit of a down year his first year.
Al Golden, sorry.
Thank you. I wanted to say Al Groh, and I'm like, no, that was Virginia.
Yeah, it was Al Golden.
Okay, so you had Al Golden there, who ran a strong enough program to get himself hired at Miami. But that was a situation where they kind of they had a little downturn. Now, I don't know if that was because it was a new guy coming in, new system, all of that you got that adjustment period. But man, by the second year they were solid, and then the last couple of years he was their 2 best seasons in Temple football history. And he replicated it. It wasn't like he had one great year and then it kind of all went to pot after that. He had back-to-back a couple of really nice seasons, then got hired at Baylor, which was just, that's one of those things where I always look at it in the sense of, that's like if 1985 SMU and post-Sandusky Penn State had a love child, it was Baylor. I mean, it was,
yeah, you're right.
I mean, that was the situation when he got there. Now, they had one God, I think like Art Briles' kid was still on the staff. They brought in the dude from South Florida, had been at West Virginia for a while. He came in, they coached him for 1 year, and then the university finished their investigation. But I know a lot of people said, well, Baylor actually was doing okay before Rule got there, and then he tanked them to 1-11. And I'm like, Rule had nothing to do with the 1-11. It was they literally booted fully 50% of scholarship.
You remember Jim Grove came in from Wake Forest.
That's who it was. It was Jim Grove.
Jim Grove, who was at Wake Forest. I mean, he's as clean cut.
Okay, I was thinking the West Virginia guy. It was it was Grove.
It was Grove. Remember, Grove was actually mentioned for the Nebraska job. Hell, I think it might have been when Callahan took the job or when Pelini took the job. There was a number of times Jim Grove was mentioned for the Nebraska job. Yeah,
I think it was before. I think it was when it would have been Pelini, and I remember it was Grove and Paul Johnson. Who was at Navy at the time, and then when he didn't get the Nebraska job, he ended up going down to Georgia Tech. But yeah, Grove was there for a year, and then I think he took one look at what was happening in terms of the investigation and sort of the in-house sanctions that Baylor brought down upon itself that just completely decimated that program.
Yeah, in what Matt Rule did at Baylor is impressive. You should never be judged really on your NFL.
But you did have kind of a little bit of a dip that first year, both places. That you had a very mediocre, but kind of up-looking second year. It was kind of that 6-7, 7-6 kind of season. And then, man, by year 3 at the previous 2 stops, he's been a head coach. They were absolutely amazing.
I guess when you look at the spring game, I've been to enough spring games and covered enough spring games that spring games are just that. Their practices, their scrimmages are never going to be perfect. You look at an entire roster that is playing with a brand new coaching staff, and even a coaching staff that's getting acquainted with one another, there's going to be mistakes in the booth. There's going to be mistakes in the field. And I get why people were frustrated yesterday. I don't read anything into it. I really don't. I just go, it's a spring game. A lot of it's mental that can be cleaned up. And you can say that for a lot of teams that participated yesterday. I just think a lot of people went there yesterday expecting perfection, and that's not going to happen.
And I guess one of the things, I was a little disappointed in the turnovers because it's the one thing you want to see is a cleaning up of some of these things that have absolutely plagued Nebraska for the last 8 or 10 years. And that, I feel like a broken record talking about this. Turnovers, penalties, special teams miscues. Those are things you really, really want to get cleaned up. And if you don't, you're going to lose games. And those are the things that allows you to, I go back to the Nebraska's 21 season, where statistically they were off the charts, just mind-blowingly good on paper. But it was one of those things where you look at that season and go, how do you lose by 1 score to some of these really, really not very good teams. And then you turn around and you also lose by one score to some of these just amazing teams like Michigan and Ohio State. How does that happen? That you can be so good against those teams and so bad against these bad teams? And that's what penalties and turnovers do to you. They doom you to these close losses to bad teams. They doom you to close losses to good teams.
And vice versa. You can win a game because a good team has turnovers and bad turnovers or and bad penalties. I mean, it works both ways. But you're right. That mental aspect of turnovers and penalties can really get to you. So it'd be interesting to see how this happens and how it progresses into the fall. But I do want to ask you about the quarterback situation. Did any quarterback impress you yesterday? Sims seems to be the number one guy coming out of spring, or do you think there's a clear-cut number one guy?
Well, coming out, Sims is going to be clear-cut number one, and I say that for a couple of reasons. One, I was actually really impressed by him. I hadn't had a chance to watch him a ton at Georgia Tech. I'd seen some film on him. He looked okay, nothing spectacular. He's bigger in person, and he moves far, far better watching him than I thought he did from the film I'd seen at Georgia Tech. That kid's an athlete. I was really, really impressed. I'll be curious to see how he stacks up and how he looks when Casey Thompson comes back, because Casey's been out with an injury. I'm kind of a big Casey Thompson fan just because I think the kid's a gamer. I think he's a winner. I think he is a great leader. I think he has an amazing attitude that he carried with him all last fall. And now we're going to go into this year. He's coming off of an injury. He had surgery. He really did not, in my understanding, hasn't participated at all in spring ball. And now he's going to have to go into fall camp. Butting heads, new system. He's got Sims in front of him. How is that all going to work out? Or do we see Casey hit the transfer portal? And that I don't know. He's got till this coming Friday to jump into the portal.
Not just Casey Thompson, but how many players in general are told to go hit the transfer portal or just go ahead and make that decision after spring practice? I mean, does a guy like Chubba Purdy stick around? I mean, you got to ask yourself.
Yeah, I think you're going to see that happen, especially when you got Heinrich Harburg, who's, it wasn't like he lit it up during the spring game. On the flip side, the coaches have been talking about how much they've appreciated what he's done for the entirety of spring ball. I mean, you can't just put it all on the spring game. So, but he's one of the guys that's really kind of impressed across the board and during all of spring ball has been Harburg, and he's getting talked about as a legitimate second stringer here. Now, that's something I really hadn't seen happening previous to this spring with him, but I mean, the kid's a hell of an athlete, and if they can find a place for him, that's great. But yeah, you're looking at guys like Purdy, what happens to him, what's Casey going to do? But there's a lot of guys, I think there's still, like 14 guys, 15 guys over the limit that they're going to have to get down to. And so you're going to see guys kind of get asked to sort of get out of there. It is what it is in this modern world and the way it works, where you bring that many guys in and you have that many guys on the roster on scholarship. And here's the thing, they're going to pick up more guys in the portal. There's more guys coming. So I don't think that's over. I think there's guys around the country that you're going to see them try and make some moves on here in the next week. You got to free up space for those guys. It just kind of is what it is. So.
Well, that's today's college football. And I saw a great quote. Where was I? Oh, I was at the Scott Technology Center over on the campus of the University of Nebraska, Omaha, the other day. And there was just, and listen, it's maybe human nature to fight change, right? But there was a quote up on the wall, and I just thought it was a really good quote. It said, when things change with it. Because if you resist it, you can be left out, or if you refuse to change, people will pass you by. And I think, listen, you can have your opinions about NIL, you can have your opinions about the transfer portal, And whether it's good, whether it's bad, I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. There's unintended consequences like there is with everything that aren't good, but it's good that players are getting paid now. There's a certain aspect of that because of the amount of the billions of dollars that are floated around. But the truth is, if you don't change with the times, you'll be left behind. I think Nebraska is doing a really good. And you were talking about Trev. Trev is. He's a smart dude, and whether you like him or not, he's a smart dude.
He is, and I mean, you can love Trev, you can hate Trev, you can love what happened or hate what happened at UNO, and I think most people hated what happened at UNO, and I think there's, especially up here in Omaha, there's a lot of people that are not happy with Trev. I will say this. There are few people better geared and with a better understanding of what's happening within the world of college athletics than Trev Alberts. He knows what he's doing, and he understands what has to be done within that world in order to succeed. And so I'm happy he's there. I really, truly am for that reason. But I mean, talking with him, when you're looking at the greater landscape, the dollars and cents that are coming down the road, the changes that are coming in terms of money that's going to be going out to the athletes from the universities themselves, heading out through the NIL. These are things that I'm going to I'm tangenting here a little bit. One of the things that you and I had talked about pretty extensively regarding NIL when this first started was kind of this whole concept of, well, hey, you got the offensive line. They signed their deal with Muchachos, which actually was kind of a cool deal. But everybody was like, yeah, all these athletes, this isn't going to be a big thing. They're going to get free burritos and $1,500, and it's there you go. And now it'll be 2 years in July?
Yeah.
So we are less than 2 years into this, and I would probably say at most Power 5 schools, the guys who are down at the low end of the totem pole are making $100,000 a year.
$100,000 a year.
$100,000 a year.
That's low end of the totem pole.
That's low end.
That's not even a starter, is what you're saying.
Correct. That's low end. That's your second string guys.
$100,000
are making $100,000 a year.
But you know what? The truth is, there's that much money in college football. There is.
Well, there is, but there is definitely some haves and have-nots, and you're going to see just a massively ever-widening gap with that. And it's basically the Big Ten and the SEC.
Well, it's funny
and the TV deals that they're signing.
It's funny that you bring this up because on my radio show on KXNO in Des Moines, which I do every day from 6 to 8, if you want to listen to it, you can download it on the iHeartRadio app. Yes, you might have to hear some Iowa State talk, but we don't always talk about that. We talk a lot about college football. And that is, you go back to 1998 and up through the college football playoff, you know, the SEC has won the majority of national championships through there. The Big Ten's only won 2 national championships. And most of that goes to Alabama. And then, you know, you
got Auburn, LSU, Georgia.
Yeah.
Well, Florida's got a couple.
Tennessee had one in there in 98 with the first year of the BCS. But I guess my point is, you know, we can talk, and I'm with you, and you are for expansion of the college football playoff.
Yes.
I get it. I don't think the outcomes are that different. I don't think because of what you just said.
Well, it's not. You're gonna have this first tier, which
yes.
is going to be these SEC schools, and a lot of that's just. I mean, it's location based. Kids want to go someplace where it's warm. They want to go someplace where they can train outdoors year round. And I will say, I think the SEC is putting massive emphasis on winning championships. Football, baseball, basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, softball. You look at, I mean, I say SEC. It's
Oklahoma's going to be in the SEC. Softball, you know.
Yeah, you got Florida State right up there in softball. So these schools, and you know, I know Florida State's ACC, but I think they're jumping to either of those conferences at some point.
Well, I don't know how you get out of it. I'm serious. They're locked up to 2036 in the ACC. I don't know how you get out of it.
They will figure out a way.
They're going to have to because
they will figure out a way.
Because you just brought it up. When the Big Ten and the SEC media deals hit, and they're getting $100 million a year as opposed to everybody else getting $50 million, that separates a lot of people real quick.
It does, and that's something that I think it's at some point somebody will figure out a way to do it, and somebody will figure out a way to pay the penalty, whatever that is. It's going to happen, and it just because otherwise the ACC doesn't survive. The ACC survives by splitting up and joining the SEC and Big Ten.
And then you have your two super conferences.
Yeah,
and that makes a lot of sense because the SEC already has who it wants out of the Big 12, right? It got Texas, and Oklahoma. It can go pick whoever it wants out of the ACC.
Well, and you and I have talked in the past about a lot of different models in terms of how some of this stuff could play out, where you could end up with a non-NC2A football championship, which it essentially kind of is already. I mean, it's the conference football championship. It's not the NC2A tournament. It's the college football championship that runs that. That's not a dedicated NC2A tournament.
Before we start recording, you even said, after talking with Trev and other people being down there yesterday, you realized what a great financial situation Nebraska is in. Not every school is like that. And I think you may only have 20 to 30 schools throughout the country that may be in that kind of situation.
If that even. Yeah. And I mean, and even when you look at Nebraska, the thing that's interesting about Nebraska is you've got one of the very few schools that, from an athletic department standpoint, does not run in the red. They essentially operate with no debt. And they actually usually have money flowing out of the athletic department into the school itself. And those are the kind of institutions that are really, really poised to be in a great spot. Now, any school that's in the Big Ten is going to be sitting in a good spot. Anybody in the SEC. Right now, if I'm Pac-12, I'm scared shitless. If I'm Big 12, I'm a little bit worried. They got a lot of numbers, and I think the Big 12 isn't going to break up and go to the Pac-12 and ACC. Other conferences are going to break up, and I think the Big 12 is going to try and position itself to basically sort of be a quality through quantity. They're going to try and get everybody else they can. If you start to see a collapse within the Pac-12, and I say that let's say for instance, let's say at some point the Big Ten decides they want to pick more West Coast schools and they go and get Washington and Oregon. Let's go get Oregon's Nike contract. Let's go get those eyeballs. Let's go get Washington, which is a fairly well-run, very well-regulated athletic department who, like Nebraska, tends to be one of, only a handful of schools, 2, 3, 5, that, again, tend to operate without debt. But if you don't have an understanding of how these schools operate financially, and the advantages of being in a conference that has one of these just absolutely massive TV deals, and how important that is moving forward, and how smart it was what the SEC and Big Ten have done in that regard with the TV deals, then you don't understand college athletics. You're gonna see a lot of schools. You're gonna see the Colorados, the Utah States, the Arizona States. These schools, from an athletic department standpoint, are going to be relegated almost to what I think right now most people view like the Sun Belt as. Everybody's going to be a mid-major if you're not in the Big 12 or the SEC. I'm sorry, the Big 10 or the SEC, and then you're going to look over at the Big 12, who's going to try really hard, mainly by just getting everybody that's left and maybe try and join into one conference.
And we're chasing a lot of squirrels right now. I'm going to bring something up
we've kind of tangented away from Nebraska.
And we'll get back into the spring game in a second, but you've just kind of gone into this, which I think is very interesting, is because, we were supposed to see a Pac-12 TV deal almost 3 weeks ago, and it still hasn't come to fruition. And the truth is, yes, and we'll get into the Colorado Deion Sanders stuff in a little bit. because you spent all week long pissing and moaning against Buffalo fans, which I thought was interesting. But you had there was somebody who said there's a doctor picking on Deion right now, and you actually responded saying, "No, I actually like Deion.
I love Deion. I'm actually a fan."
And you got to understand something about Deion Sanders. The guy's consistent. It's not shtick. What you see is what you get.
That's him.
That is him,
dude. I spent almost half a dozen years playing against. Well, I wasn't on the field as much as a lot of guys, but I was out there on the field playing against Deion Sanders.
I mean, he only has 35 scholarship guys that are left from last year's team. He has 47 transfer portal guys in. You know there's still going to be more coming in. But you brought up a point about being able to afford him, and I think that comes down to the TV deal. Because if he wins at Colorado, and the Pac-12 doesn't get a TV deal that's worth a crap, and he's got to compete against the SEC and the Big Ten as money. The guy wants to compete. He wants to compete, and if he can't compete monetarily, he'll go get his Lambos and his Louis Vuittons, and he'll take them somewhere else if he wins at Colorado.
And that's the thing is, yeah, it's my take on him is either A, it's going to crash and burn, and he's out of there in 2 to 3 years, or he's going to win, and somebody's coming in and grabbing him. That's the thing I worry about. I shouldn't say worry about. I don't care, but that's what I envision is most likely happening at Colorado. Either way, I don't see Deion being there for very long for that very reason. They had trouble initially putting the funds together for his contract. How are they going to handle NIL when you've got? I mean, okay, let's take. You know, I'm switching sports and schools here a little bit, but it's a good illustration of the world we live in now. Let's look at Creighton basketball. You've got an Elite Eight team.
Creighton's doing quite well in NIL. They're doing better in Nebraska as in NIL. Okay. I can promise you that.
No, but that's my point, though, is you've got Creighton, who's an Elite Eight team. And I think the world of McDermott. I think McDermott is an amazing basketball coach. Top 5 in the country?
I don't know if I'd go that far.
Top 10?
Top 15, maybe.
Okay. Either way, though, I mean, if you've got a guy who's top 15 basketball coach in the country, Creighton can't be the easiest place to recruit to. Like, let's go to, I mean, it's like Nebraska. It's like, here, let's go someplace kind of cold, smack in the middle of the country. There's not a lot to do here. Go study. I don't know.
Yeah, well, but the CHI Center sells out. I mean, you're playing in front of big crowds.
No, and so does Nebraska down in Lincoln with the football team.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
Hasn't helped them win. But I mean, here's my point. They've got a good foundation.
Yes.
Great coach. They win consistently. They're going to the NC2As or at least the NIT. They're going to a postseason tournament consistently. They went to the Elite Eight this year, and NIL alone was enough to get some really good players to leave that team.
And probably they could have competed. I think Nemhart could have actually probably made just as much money here as he's going to at Gonzaga.
Yeah, I mean, here's my question. If NIL did not exist, we're back in 2000, and I'm going to back it up a few years. We're back in 2016 financial situations for college athletes. Does Nemhart leave Creighton?
Probably not, no.
No, why would he?
Yeah, because
he's got a great spot. He's an Elite Eight team. He's winning basketball games left and right. He's got a wonderful coach, and he's playing in front of a sold-out crowd every single home game in the Big East Conference, one of the best basketball conferences out there. Why the hell would you leave that? You wouldn't. That's what NIL's done to a lot of these schools.
True.
So the bottom line is, now, and you said Creighton's doing very well NIL-wise. Yeah, they are. They're going to get guys to replace these guys that are losing.
And remember,
that are
and it's different
leaving.
than football. In football, you got 85 guys on scholarship you've got to keep having. Basketball, you got 12.
No,
and that's where it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, my point is that if you've got a school that has a basis to raise money for NIL, you're going to do well. Creighton's lost guys because of NIL. They're going to replace guys through NIL.
Same with Nebraska football.
Exactly. Guess who doesn't have those dollars? Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, sure, they got 47,000 at a spring game yesterday.
Yeah, which cracks me up because Boulder might be one of the richest towns in America.
That's so true. But see, but you're dealing with Broncos fans there. You're dealing with Avalanche fans. You're dealing with Nuggets fans.
Historically, they haven't cared. It's like a California school. Nobody shows up. So
let's go back to the spring game now. A position group that's near and dear to your heart, and that's the offensive line. Teddy Prohaska didn't practice all spring. Your initial thoughts on the offensive line yesterday?
I thought they looked okay.
Okay.
I was impressed. Okay, so probably a little better than okay. I was impressed by how they moved. Looking at his offense. He wants and he needs offensive linemen who will move. Guys got to get up. He's got guys pulling, they're moving, they're trapping, they're leading out on sweeps. That was fun to see. I liked seeing guys get up and move. That's a good thing. It's hard to tell how good they are at that when they're doing it against the same guys they've been practicing against week in and week out for the last month. Got to see how these guys look against some different competition. Get some guys in different colored helmets out there this fall. We'll have a much better feel for how this is going to look going forward. I liked Ethan Piper. He's one of the. I like the guys who are brawlers. I like the guys who are assholes out on the field. Ethan Piper's a brawler. I liked what I saw with him. I really want to see more Newelly going forward. But we'll see how it goes. I thought Ben Hart looked when he was his first year as a starter as a freshman. I thought he was solid. The next two seasons, it looked like there was almost kind of this degradation in performance with him. That was really hard for me to understand how that was happening. And I thought yesterday when I watched Ben Hart, I thought he looked like he did as a freshman. And I say that in the sense I thought he actually played quite well that year. So it's one of those that was really encouraging. It was kind of hard for me to get a good read on Corcoran. I thought he played reasonably well the times I was kind of focusing on him. And then he had it's either an ankle or a knee banged up. I'm not sure. They haven't really released a lot of details on the injury, so I'm not sure what will happen with him. And then we're going to have, at some point, we got to get Teddy back out on the field and see how he's doing. And that's the thing. I love Teddy. I think in terms of athletic ability, I think he's the best guy on the roster right now as far as the offensive linemen go. That's a guy who, when he's healthy, when he's not injured, when he doesn't have any kind of niggling injury that he's trying to battle against, that's a guy who can dominate. And I'd be the first to admit I didn't see that happening because when he was at Elkhorn South, I mean, the guy was just this massive, massive human being. You got this 6'9", 6'10" offensive tackle, defensive lineman who, I mean, he pretty much has to just take one step and he's destroyed whoever's across from him. I saw him go out there in the games that he played last year, and I saw this incredibly huge guy, this incredibly tall guy drop his level and get low to the ground and just dominate guys. I thought he played amazingly well in that Michigan game up until the knee injury. When he came back last fall, it was too early. The one knee hadn't healed up. He injured the other knee. He had a shoulder bang up that he had to, I think it was a labrum, he said, that he had to get fixed. I want to see him come back, and I want to see some consistency in terms of his ability to stay durable, to stay out there and stay injury-free. But if Teddy gets out there and he's healthy and he stays healthy, he's a guy that can not just do well, but he's a guy who actually can dominate.
So I want to bring this up because they brought it up on the Big Ten Network yesterday. Larry Putney was talking about it, and it's been talked a little bit about in spring practice, but I haven't asked you yet, being an offensive lineman. And you mentioned the mobility, and he wants Coach Rule wants those offensive linemen to be fast and agile. They weren't wearing knee braces yesterday. As an orthopedic guy, you work at an orthopedic hospital.
I think they're worthless.
They're worthless? Okay. Unless you need one, right? If Teddy's coming off an ACL, will he have to wear one?
Oh, I bet he's got one. I could be wrong. He might not.
But if you're just wearing a brace just for shits and giggles, if you don't need it, don't wear it, right?
That was always my take. Now, I'm going back to the docs I work with, and I work with what, in my opinion, is the best orthopedic group in town. It's Ortho Nebraska. I say best group in town. It's the best group in a 5-state area. And the only reason I say 5 states is because I don't know a lot of the other groups outside the surrounding states, but it's an amazing group of surgeons, and every time I talk to them and ask them that question, the answer they say is no matter how many times they run the numbers, you don't see any kind of statistical advantage or benefit to wearing the knee braces.
Did you wear one?
I did in high school, actually. I had a teammate, one of my buddy Matt blew his ACL, and it was kind of the classic old school. He was standing there, feet planted, and our nose guard got blocked into him from the side. So it was kind of that direct blow right into the side of the knee, and just punched it inward and blew out the ACL. Had the terrible triad, the ACL, meniscus, and MCL injury. And that was about as classic an ACL injury as you can get. Those are the ones that the braces are actually designed to protect against. I don't know if they really do. And I think in most instances, they'd give you maybe just really some very marginal protection.
I think it's interesting. The knee brace industry actually cracks me up. I go back to when I was in high school. And our high school coaches, and I was a quarterback, Rob, believe it or not. I mean, you look at me now and you think, boy, there's a high school quarterback. But they made us all wear knee braces. We all spent like hundreds of dollars on, and every player wore a knee brace.
Yeah,
and I'm like, and I'm looking back now going, well, that was stupid.
Yeah, I wore them in high school, and I got down in Lincoln, and I think I wore them for maybe the first month of my first year down there, which was a redshirt season. And then after that, you're looking around and you're going like, man, no one is wearing these. You want to know the two things that nobody wore? Cups and knee braces.
Well, hell, nobody. And you get to the NFL, nobody's wearing it.
They're not wearing anything.
They're not. I mean, there's no more thigh pads. Yeah. There's no more knee pads. It's crazy. I mean,
everybody takes all that stuff off, and we kind of spent all of our time in college slowly sort of paring that stuff down. We got into you get into the NFL, and same thing, even more so. I mean, those guys, you'd wear the pants. They didn't have the regulations like in college. You had to have something in there. It had to look like a pad, but guys would find the smallest, lightest things they could. And movement, mobility, being light on your feet, all of that mattered way more. And so guys got rid of everything.
Any other position group impress you on spring game? Let's put a bow on the spring game, on the game itself. Anything else impress you about the spring game? Or
running backs, it was kind of fun to see Gabe Irvin out there back healthy again. I thought he looked good. He looked hungry. There's a kid who wanted to play 2 years ago when he tore his ACL. That's a kid who I think he's going to do some damage. So I was pretty impressed watching him. I mentioned the offensive line. Like I said, I thought they did reasonably well, and I think that's a position group that has a chance to be a strength going forward. I thought the linebacker, I thought the defensive line, kind of that front. I keep saying front seven, but I guess it's more, if you really want to split hairs, sort of the front eight. I thought they played reasonably well also, and so that was fun watching those guys. They moved well. They seemed a little more mobile. And for a group of guys, I mean, you look at some of these dudes like Hutmacher and Robinson. These are some big dudes who can move. That was fun to see.
Did you get to spend any time with Coach Solich at all? Did you say hi to him?
Really quick.
Did he remember you? Did he go, I remember you, Rob?
Football coaches remember
everything.
Everybody.
I think football coaches, basketball coaches, they remember every play, every down, everything.
Coaches are like that. And here's the other thing too. I went all through elementary school and junior high with Frank's son Jeff. We were in the same class, so I went all through school with Jeff. My wife graduated high school with Jeff at Southeast. You kind of knew him a little bit. So. No, he totally did. But I mean, he looked great. The whole damn family, they're ageless. Like they look exactly how they looked 12 years ago. I mean, it's just nothing's changed. It's kind of scary. It's like Dorian Gray here. I'm not sure what's going on.
You tweeted that early. By the way, you can follow Dr. Rob on Twitter at DocTalkSports. Lots of it. I mean, a lot of former players down there, which was good to see.
And that was kind of the thing that's fun for me is like. I'm hanging out with Clinton Childs and Toby Wright. And
by the way, Clinton has the best beard. You ought to get Clinton Childs and mustaches for kids. And a little bit later on, we're going to bring Jeff Hardy up.
Oh, we can't do that because you got to start it off by shaving everything.
I know, but he can shave and start over, can he?
He could, but like you would hear angels weep if Clinton shaves his beard. It ain't happening.
He looks like Santa Claus, man. And people need to remember, Clinton Childs was a badass. He was a badass football player, and he was a badass wrestler. Wrestling might have been his best sport.
It was. Well, I'll tell you what. That's a guy who is an absolutely amazing athlete and an even better person. So, it's always fun hanging out with Clinton because he's easily one of the best guys that I think. As a mentor of kids, as a high school coach in this area, man, there's a guy who's given back and changing some lives. So I love Clinton for that reason. But God, the guy was a hell of an athlete.
He really was. But it was good to see all those pictures. We are getting a question from the in-house crew here at Kros Strain Brewing in La Vista. By the way, 2 Kros Strain locations. If you haven't been to the Millwork Draft Works yet, that's a fabulous place down in Millwork Commons. Keep your eye out for some pretty cool stuff maybe happening during the College World Series. Hasn't happened yet, but there might be some pretty cool stuff happen. And we're at the tap room in La Vista, the original location, and this is absolutely awesome. They want to know if you can comment on the local high school players, like the kid Brett from West Side and the Stangle kid from Millard South. What did you think of their play yesterday?
Well, so you've got So Stanger, Millard South, was playing kind of, again, I'm not sure exactly. It's basically an outside linebacker type position. The kid can move. The kid can run. The kid's an amazing athlete. He's going to do well. This would be his first spring ball. The thing that was fun with him is the fact I sat and we had to butt heads with him. I think it was like 2 straight state semifinals game. It's when my son was playing for West Side, and so that was kind of fun to watch. That's a kid who's really a hell of a good football player, and he fits that mold of what Rule's talked about, where he wants to go find kind of those freak athletes and get them out there and mold them into what he needs. And Stanger is one of those guys. He's kind of a freak athlete, so he's going to do really well. He was a kind of a quarterback, also played a little bit of sort of a kind of a wildcat quarterback running back combo for Millard South, and then played on and then he played defense as well. But he was just an absolute beast in high school. So it's going to be fun to watch him because you got a local kid down there who's going to do well. You got Grant Taggy from Omaha West Side, and Grant's actually been a very consistent performer down there on special teams. He's gotten a ton of playing time. I would love to see Grant get some more plays from scrimmage because, again, he's one of those guys who's sort of a kind of that outside linebacker mold, sort of that Luke Gifford type who you can get him out in space, play that, I call it the JoJo Doman position in that sort of like 3-3-5 defense that they're going to run, which isn't that far different than Chenander's. I think they're going to run at a hell of a lot different style than what Chenander did, but personnel-wise, it's kind of similar. So you still have that JoJo Doman type of player on the defense, and both Stanger and Taggy could play that, although I think Stanger's more of a true outside linebacker. Taggy's sort of that nickel guy where it's sort of that hybrid safety linebacker type of position like Doman. But I'd like to see Taggy get some snaps and more scrimmage plays. But the kid's been dominant on special teams. Gets out there, can run, can cover, can hit, and I'd like to see more of them.
You know, going back to the game yesterday, I love the XFL kickoffs they were doing yesterday. Did you like that? I thought it's a different way to do kickoffs, and I kind of liked it.
I'm not going to lie. I totally wasn't paying attention during that.
So basically,
yeah, give me the rundown because I'm sitting here going like
nobody can move.
Was anybody watching the kicking?
You move the kickoff team up farther, but nobody can start running until the receiver catches the ball.
Oh,
yeah. You go back to the spring game. Yeah, go back and watch.
That's not the kickoff return I grew up with.
It's not.
Kickoff return I grew up with hurt.
Yeah, this still may hurt, just not as much. So go back and watch that. Maybe we can actually.
I need to go check that out.
Maybe we can do a centrist Federal Credit Union Doc's diagnosis.
Yeah, I was so completely not paying attention at that. Anytime a kickoff was going, I'm like, is the offensive line out there? No. All right. Let's look somewhere else.
You were looking in the players' parking lot yesterday. You were tailgating there, and you were saying that the parking lot with the players today is a lot different than when you were going to college.
It looks like an NFL parking lot. I'm not going to lie. That's an interesting dynamic. I'm not saying bad.
Yeah.
I don't say this in a bad sense. I'm kind of in the like, good for good for them.
BMWs.
Yeah, you saw BMWs, Acuras, Camaros are a thing. I think they like the brand new Camaros. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I like the Camaro. Owen's got me under the Dodge Challenger. He's a big Challenger guy.
I love the Challenger.
You know.
I'm sitting here going like I would love to find like a late '60s to mid '70s. Kind of Detroit muscle car. You got the old Challengers, the old Camaros, the old Firebirds.
Have you been to the Pete Fink car museum over on 90th Street?
No, I know what you're talking about, but I've never been there.
I need to take you there. I think if you're a car guy, if you're a muscle car guy, I think you would like that.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'd be all over. So Oldsmobile 442s.
Oh yeah.
So old Barracudas. Love that stuff. But no, it's. Yeah, I mean, and then you got I call it all the country guys, the guys from the smaller towns, South Dakota, Western Nebraska. Some very big, very nice pickup trucks.
Can't go wrong with a good pickup truck. Cannot go wrong. You know, it was a lot of former players at the spring game yesterday. You were with the Pipeline on Friday night at the Hale Varsity Lounge. You had a sold-out event. You're wearing your Pipeline T-shirt today. Did it turn out like you thought it was going to?
Yeah. No, it was a good event. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that, again, nearly 30 years later, we're still that relevant. I mean, if you had said, like, hey, we're getting the 1970 offensive line together for an autograph signing in 2000, 30 years later, would those guys sell that out? I love Dick Rupert. He was kind of a badass. Bob Newton kicked ass. I'm not sure they sell it out though. So
yeah, I mean,
and I say that in the sense I am flattered by the draw we had.
Well, it's because there hasn't been an offensive line really. Now the '95 line was really good, and Aaron Graham went into it how good that line was.
Yeah, it really was.
But you guys were really that original, and that benchmark of '94, even '95, has not been hit since then. And I think a lot of people attribute to many of Nebraska's problems. They haven't had, and whether it's fair or not.
Statistically, 97 was up there. I actually go back. I remember during COVID, you're locked up at home. I went back, and they ran a number of games from that 97 season. Now, definitely the Missouri game, the flea kicker. Yeah. They had obviously the bowl game against Tennessee from that year. But, I mean, they had the Oklahoma game from that season, a couple of others that they ran on Big Ten Network. I had forgotten just how physically dominant that 97 team was. That offensive line just beat people up. And go back, you had my brother, you had Aaron Taylor, you had Fred Pollock, big old prep kid. I mean, Fred was just a beast athletically. You had Eric Anderson from Southeast. You had Hoskinson was the swing guy. You had Josh Heskew, Oklahoma kid at center. Boy, they just beat people up. That was I think kind of an underrated team and an underrated offensive line in terms of how bad they physically beat up guys. And 99 I thought was kind of 99, 2000, sort of in that same mold. You had guys on that offensive line like Finotti, who were, again, just some absolutely amazing football players. So they've had some good lines since that I think actually are a smidge underrated. But yeah, you haven't had that where it's across the board like that, where you're going, well, NFL guy, NFL guy, NFL guy, NFL guy, NFL guy,
Yeah.
where all of them are. And I mean, and then you look behind us and it's like NFL guy, another Outland Trophy over there, another NFL guy, NFL guy. I mean, it's just, you had this run of NFL guys when you're looking at the Adam Trues and the Chris Dishmans and all of that crew.
But when you're the original, there's something about the original. I mean,
and I think that was the thing that's probably made it stuck.
And, nobody took photos like you. I mean, nobody had fanny packs like you. Nobody was, nobody took photos like you.
So I'm hanging out with Toby Wright, so All-American safety that we played with. Toby was a senior on the 93 team, the close loss to Florida State. And then Toby went and played he played forever in the NFL, Rams and Redskins, was a Pro Bowler in the NFL. His son, Javen Wright, is on the team right now. And he's still coming off of a surgery, still healing up. So he suited up. He went through the warm-ups, the kind of went through the movement drills yesterday. Did not do any live contact stuff because he's still, I think they said he's about 2 weeks out from getting fully cleared by the docs. But it's fun when you're out there and it's like, here's this kid whose dad I played with, and Toby was in town for the game. So we ended up hanging out with Toby all day Saturday as well, too, dinner afterwards, and just amazing human being. But being able to see those guys, that was kind of one of the highlights of seeing those guys. The reason I bring up Toby Wright, though, you said fanny pack. Toby's carrying around a fanny pack the whole day. Now, he had it slung over his shoulder, but...
So it's a fanny pack Merce kind of type thing.
Well, it was like he was satcheling it. He was satcheling the fanny pack.
And I'm going to be honest
with you. But I'm like, if Toby Wright's cool enough to do a fanny pack, I can do a goddamn fanny pack.
I'm with you, and I'm going to give you, and I'm actually paying you a compliment here, okay? I don't think anybody had the physiques that all five of you guys had. I mean, there was something about, you guys were like bodybuilders.
But one of the things that I think stuck out, so two things here. One, I mean, we fit the mold.
You did.
It was like 6'4", 6'5" across the board. Everybody was 310 to 325. Yeah, it was kind of like, we're going to cookie cutter 5 All-Americans, and here's what they should look like. And we're going to put those 5 guys out there. It's like, yeah, that was us. Here's the other thing, because one of the other offensive lines this was the line that I kind of cut my teeth on watching football, were those guys like 81 to 83. So that's Dave Remington, Dean Steinkühler, Mark Benning. It's that crew of guys. And that was just, God, that was an amazing group of athletes. I mean, there's a group that, again, in that group, you had 3 Outland trophies and 1 Lombardi from those O-lines. That's pretty impressive. And in terms of athletic ability and accomplishment, man, that's the 81, 82, 83 guys. I mean, that's arguably one of the better offensive lines of college football ever as well, too. I mean, show me an offensive line where you've got, at the same time on the field, 3 Outland trophies and a Lombardi.
I don't know if you can say that.
That's pretty goddamn impressive.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But here's the thing. They never won the national title.
You guys did.
You had that close loss to Penn State in '82 during the regular season. You had the loss to Miami in the Orange Bowl after the '83 season. I got the ring on today. I mean, now I can't get it off, but it's one of those. You win that, and the fact that it was. Here's the other thing. It was also the fact that it was over Miami. It was sort of like exercising the demons from the '83 team. You want to hold it up for Owen? He's actually back here now, so he can actually do the camera check. But it's that's one of those things where probably tied it together for us as that offensive line.
Yeah.
And then the thing, you go down and you've got this incredibly compelling Miami defense. You've got Warren Sapp, who right there's another Lombardi and a Bednarik trophy. But you got Zach, who was the Outland winner. You got Sapp, who was the Lombardi winner. You got Ray Lewis, NFL Hall of Famer at linebacker on that defense. You've got Miami in a bowl game for the national title. You've got the fight against Penn State in the polls. You had all of these dynamics coming to a head, and we won. I mean, it was like the good guys won. And that was the thing that I think really kind of, I don't know, if you want to take anything that just really nailed it to the wall and sort of made it okay, yeah, this shit's now legendary.
Yeah, and I think it really is how gassed the Miami team was at the end of that game. I mean, Frank Costa's body parts are still left on
our defense beat the hell out of those guys.
Seeing Warren Sapp gassed and all those guys.
It was a good offense.
It was an okay offense, but
it was a pretty solid. Dude, Frank Costa might be the most maligned Miami quarterback in history. Dude, Gino Torretta's beloved by Miami.
Well, that's true.
I'm like, I would actually take Costa over Torretta, and Torretta's got a Heisman.
But the shots of Warren Sapp gassed at the end of that. I mean, you guys take a lot of credit for that. So you've got the pipeline, and where can people get those shirts? And by the way, the Doc Talk podcast is going to be a huge supporter of the pipeline initiative going forward, because you guys have a lot of stuff coming up.
So we're gonna have. We're kind of still in the process. I mean, this is kind of a new thing for us. So we're going to be setting up a web store. Right now, we've done some partnership with Husk Guys, the Husk Guys Twitter page, who also that's who does Pipeline Jerky.
Okay.
So we've done some work with them and kind of partnered up with them, and that's who we did the event with on Friday night. And basically, because they've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
So they've kind of got their little infrastructure set up to handle that stuff. So that's why we partnered up with them, and they're good people. So. And again, I keep going back to the pork jerky. It's money. But yeah, so they've got I got to go double check. I think you can hop on the Pipeline Jerky website and find them. I got to double check that one. But we're going to be setting up a web store as well too, to do some autographed items, to do the T-shirts, hats, that kind of thing. And the idea behind it, so we're calling it's the original Pipeline. And so the idea behind it, we went ahead and we kind of got our logos trademarked, and we're going to kind of start pushing some stuff out there. And the idea behind it is, from an NIL standpoint, to set up some funds or to set up a system to raise some money and push some money down towards NIL for the players, for the offensive line. So to set up like a kind of what Pipeline Jerky did, where you've got a offensive line specific NIL revenue stream. So that's kind of our goal, and we're sitting there going well, we are kind of the original Pipeline. Let's go ahead. We'll put together a logo, trademark that, set up an LLC, and then we're going to start moving forward with trying to figure out what we can do to to kind of promote that and maybe, like I said, figure out a way to get some money back and give back to those guys to help out with recruiting.
Stepping in and joining us now on the Doc Talk podcast presented by Betfred Sports. I think he's overcompensating for something with this trophy. It's Jeff Hardy. And Jeff, are you overcompensating? Or are you rubbing it into Rob that Rob's name is not on this trophy?
We need to make that trophy bigger.
Right. So what I've brought here is I brought the Magnum. So as you may or may not know, Rob and I participate in Mustaches for Kids. He was the Undertaker to my Paul Bearer a couple years back. It was an outstanding costume. Well, last year I ended up taking home the Sweetest Stash prize, which is basically like a dude beauty pageant.
Okay.
Saying I'm the most beautiful mustache, the most mustachiest mustache.
For a ginger stash,
It's not
killed
bad.
it. Killed it.
It's not bad. So I've got to take this thing around with me all year. You can see it's got a little damage to it, but it's okay. So not overcompensating. It just shows that, hey, I've got a hell of a mustache.
Rob, have you won this thing yet?
I haven't. I am like, I think Chris Covey, who was kind of the founder, originator of the Omaha chapter of Mustaches for Kids. Chris said if there was an award called Least Fundraisingist, that would probably be me.
No, I know somebody else it would go to.
Oh, who's that?
I'm not going to bust out Smoyer right now.
Dude, don't make Smoyer feel bad, but yeah, I get it. Dude, lawyers.
Lawyers
Lawyers and doctors.
Yeah, we're not good at raising money.
You're good at making it, though.
Yeah.
I do okay. But yeah, so yeah, I've been doing it since year one.
Yeah,
Are you
you're dirty 30. No, it'll be my 11th year growing, but my 10th year making Selleck.
All right,
We've
there
got
we
a
go.
special thing planned for the guys that are in the 10-year class. We'll announce that soon. But maybe we'll have a special beer for it, or I don't know. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
But yeah, so mustache season is right around the corner, so I'm just bringing some awareness. We got a great group of charities this year. Please don't ask me what they all are because I can't remember what the individual.
Did you guys make over $1 million last year?
We made up
Yeah.
just over the
was last year the first year we cracked $1 million?
yep,
So
million and 4,000. So
I mean, think about that. Over a month time, right?
about 200 guys.
yeah. So, but I mean, yeah. If you get a chance, go to what is it? Mustaches for Kids, M4K
Omaha.com, and then that's the actual just website. But then if you want to sign up, you can go to m4kfundraiser.org. Sign up through that. We're always looking for new guys to grow some mustaches. I got some guys from the brewery that are going to join this year.
And essentially, the gist of it is you clean shave, you get everything off. You got 1 month to grow a mustache.
Yep.
And then you pimp family, friends, and coworkers for donations.
So it's like Amway, but raising money.
Yeah,
get a lot of
sponsor your mustache.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the old March of Dimes readathon. You get a bunch of people to sponsor you, and then you go read like 17 books, and people give you money. But anyway, it's like that, except instead of reading books, we grow mustaches. We get together, about once a week for a month.
Yep.
Drink way too much beer.
Yep.
We drink a lot of beer. We make fun of each other.
Yep.
And it might be the most tongue-in-cheek fundraiser out there. But every year, it started off, we would pick one children's charity in the Omaha area, and all the funds would go to that one charity. It's gotten so large. I know during the COVID year, was that the first year they did multiple?
The 8. So this year they're doing one main charity, and then they've got 5 auxiliary charities. So like the main charity this year is completely kids, and then I know Down Syndrome Alliance of the Midlands, Micah House, and a few other charities are involved as well.
Cool. And it's funny, you mentioned you got some guys at the brewery here getting involved. That's got to be hard because brewers and their beards, they're very protective of their beards.
They're synonymous.
Right? And if they got a clean shave, that's probably a pretty big deal for those guys.
Right. We've got one guy, he shaved off his beard. He got ahead of the game, and he shaved it off for the first time probably in about 5-10 years.
Damn.
Man, well, I can't thank you enough for it's funny because this is our fourth time here, but I can't thank you enough for having us out because the beer is always good.
It's just good.
It's great, actually. It's great.
It's pretty amazing.
I had the Great Crush today, and I had the Peach. I'll probably have one more before I leave. But what's some seasonal stuff? You guys changing anything new coming up here shortly? Or?
So we are going to have our tan limes. That's our summer seasonal that we do. It's just basically a lime lager. We do the work of the Corona with a lime for you. So all you have to do is open the can and drink it.
That one is it Jessica who came up with the idea of doing the tan limes
and the hot as Ellis
and the hot as Hellas mix, and it's like a michelada.
I throw a little tomato juice or V8 or whatever you want to do in it for.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good.
But she's anti-tomato, so that's not really up her alley.
I was with a guy. It was our buddy Dan Checker who listens to this, but he mixed orange juice with his beer. Have you ever done that?
It's called the Brass Monkey.
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised by that.
I used to, like, back in the day, like, I mean, we're talking like 20, 25 years ago, I used to go up to, I think it's the Pawnee Bar up in Columbus. Mm-hmm. They always had, it was called Duke's.
Yeah.
And it was like these giant 40-ounce mugs. But that was their thing, was orange beers. Instead of a red beer with tomato juice, they do orange beers. You call it a Brass Monkey?
It's a Brass Monkey or a Beer Mosa, one of the two.
A Beer Mosa, yeah. So they called them Dukes up there, but that's Columbus.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you go to the Red Fox out on Westo, it was called a schooner back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
2-ounce big chalice.
Because I'm kind of like I'm not a big tomato juice guy either.
I've done the orange beers as a hangover cure.
Yeah.
Damn, that works well. You're getting a little vitamin C, little sugar in there. That's money for a hangover.
Bloody beer is mine. That's my hangover
which
beer.
I love. I love the tomato juice in the beer. I'm a little disappointed that Jessica doesn't get into the tomato juice in the beer.
Anti-tomato.
Wow.
Like all things tomato or just tomato in her beer?
Ketchup in particular. Fresh tomatoes, absolutely not. She'll eat pasta sauce, pizza sauce, but that's about the extent of it.
So I'm not a big ketchup guy. I mean, I'm fine. Little splash on top of the burger, but I'm kind of more of a mustard on everything guy.
Because you grew up.
I'm normal.
I like that.
I'm normal.
Yeah.
I'm normal.
Two things
so
that
I
happen
like
when you grow up.
Yeah.
You start liking onions and you start liking mustard.
Yeah.
You were mentioning, because I live closer to the Millwork Commons DraftWorks. We can't give it all away today, but you could be some big things happening for the College World Series, right?
So as you know, this will be our third year that we've opened up before the College World Series. This year, the plan is to have a big kind of a pop-up beer garden kind of concept, but it all hinges on whether or not we get the license in front of the City Council on May 2nd.
Is it going to be at a different location than at the...
No, it'll be right in front. We're going to lock the street from 12th to 13th. We'll have 20-plus vendors out there. We're going to have DJs
That would be
come
outstanding, because you're literally right across. You are a half block from the stadium.
I have timed it. It is a 5-minute walk door to door, and that's for a fat guy like me to walk it.
Will there be any corporate rental space down there?
Potentially.
Okay. Because then you and I should probably talk after this.
Probably do that.
we might be doing business again.
So we've got plenty of parking down there. Typically, the Mastercraft building has a parking lot there. There's a big open field, about $20. Come in, get a couple of beers in you, walk to the stadium. Don't have to fight the crowds on the way back. Sit, have a couple beers. Typically, Willie Dogs shows up.
I was just going to ask, is Willie Dog going to be located?
He's going to be there. I'm not sure if it's
there's a guy with good mustard and good onions.
Yeah, so he'll be there. Again, not sure if he's going to be there the whole time. He's doing a little bit of schooling. He's doing the culinary. But he says he's coming down for a few days.
Good.
Awesome.
Excellent stuff. Jeff, I appreciate you having us, man.
Yeah, always.
We can talk. If you want us back again, we can talk about that and do it again. We got another season coming up. And drink Kros Strain Beer, man, because it's really, really, really good.
Yeah, now we're available in Kansas, South Dakota, and into Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, are you at the El Bait Shop
yet?
We
are at the El Bait Shop.
All right.
Nice.
Have you been to the El Bait Shop yet?
I've been there. Well, one time when Ryan went to go visit Grandview.
It's okay. Nothing against Omaha. And people get sick and tired of me talking about Iowa. Jeff, Rob, back me up. It's the greatest beer bar in America.
It's pretty damn good. It's paralysis by analysis, though. There's 200-plus taps.
I was just going to say
261 right now.
Yeah.
261.
It sort of fries your brain. The couple of times, I guess I've been there twice now, and both times I go there, I just tell the waitress, here's kind of what I like. Surprise me.
Yeah.
It's one of those, me trying to look and actually pick, it's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's almost, I don't want to say it's too much, but it's almost too much.
But you almost have to see it to believe it, right? Because when you say 260, they're like, whatever. Then you walk in, you're like, holy moly.
It's taps on taps on taps.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
And actually, the food's solid.
Yeah. It's good bar food. The High Life Lounge right around the corner is another good one. It's like going into Grandpa's basement.
Well, they still have they serve green bean casserole on Monday at the High Life Lounge.
Yeah.
I like you just said that, and I slid back into 1977.
My wife just got like post-traumatic stress syndrome when I said green bean casserole, because when we got married, my mother, honest to God, you know how mother-in-laws can be a little overpossessive of their sons? She gave Anjanette her top 10 recipes for me, and green bean casserole was one of them. You know how many times she's made green bean casserole since we've been married? 0.
I like green bean cat. I grew up the kid of my parents are Iowa people. Like I remember going to funerals with my kids in Iowa, and like I had to explain to them. Oh, by the way, there will be church Jello.
Yep.
And there will be church casserole and other church casserole, and there will be church like 3-layer dip, and my daughter's like, what do you mean church casserole? And we got in there,
funeral potatoes.
ate, and my daughter was like, I understand what you meant by church casserole now. So.
Oh, man. Good stuff.
Cool.
Jeff, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff Hardy from Kros Strain.
So M4KOmaha.com, or it's M4K Fundraiser.
M4KOmaha.com, M4KFundraiser.org.
There you
M4KFundraiser.org. So you can hop on. I know you can find a link to the fundraiser site on the M4KOmaha.com website. But if you want to donate, if you want to join, if you want to grow, it's a great organization, and it's a great way to help out some local children's charities. And the great thing is it's literally all you got to do is you show up once a week. Usually it's a Wednesday or Thursday night, hang out with a bunch of dudes, drink beer, make fun of each other, which is usually what like guys are doing most of the time anyway. So
yeah. So
just do this and like pimp your buddies and coworkers for money and raise a little money for some local children's charity.
Now, so. I invited Chad Carr here. They haven't signed up for 2023 yet, but Chad's been one of the original supporters of this podcast going back to when we first started. And I actually, Chad, I invited you in because you're moving. I saw that you guys are moving.
Yes.
How hard is it? I mean, first of all, you sold the business.
Yeah.
So it's not Ticket Express anymore. It's Tickets for Less.
Correct.
And then you're like, everything's changing because now they're moving out of the building you own. What's up with that?
We're moving. We've been in that building for the past, since 2004 when I bought it. And they just wanted to be a little bit further west, a little bit newer feel. Basically, we're, it's different. It's different. But, basically, we're spreading the word. We're going to be out at about 144th and Center.
Damn, you're going
right. Yep. So about 144th and Center.
Way out there.
Where we're moving out to, and the observatory bar where that is. It's basically in that same parking lot.
You're right next to the hospital, right?
Yeah, that's my hood during the day where I'm working. So you said observatory. I'm like, oh, yeah, we all know where that's at.
So we're excited. The build out should be done. I mean, the company's kind of been dragging their feet, but it should be done by around the 1st of May or so.
Of course, how's it been since? I mean, when you sell a company that you started selling Nebraska Cornhusker football tickets, almost 30 years ago, you stayed on with the company. How's it been? I know you probably got to speak corporate speak. You can't, but has it been a hard adjustment not to have full control of everything?
I wish I had done it sooner. So it's one of those things that people don't understand, that if somebody's having a problem downloading their ticket or getting the app to pull up on a Saturday night, and you're the on-call person, guess what? You're dealing with that, regardless of what you have going on. And now we have a team of almost 100 people that we're working with all across the country. We have offices in obviously Kansas City, Tuscaloosa, St. Louis, San Diego. It's just a great group. And like I said, my only regret is I didn't do it sooner.
We didn't talk about you directly. I don't know how much you're listening to the podcast or not. Did you listen to one with John Higgins a couple weeks ago?
I did not. I'm about 3/4 of the way through the Aaron Graham one, which was great.
Go back and listen to the John Higgins one. But I always say that because did you know he owns Lagoons now. Do you still own the Lagoons brand?
Yeah.
And so John was an original Lagoons model.
I thought about that.
Oh, was he really?
Yes.
I thought about that when John was talking about something like, does Chad know this?
Yeah,
I know that.
John Higgins, Final Four referee, was an original Lagoons model.
I'll have to reach out to him.
Yeah, so he's talking about his time on the runway. He went to New York. He went to LA. Did all this stuff. He did it for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting story because everybody thinks Lagoons started out on the West Coast, similar to like OP or Hobie. It really didn't. It was two guys, Mike Kofod, and the other name will come to me here in a second, but two guys that were painting numbers on street curbs, and installing peepholes on doors, just doing odd jobs, and they kind of got caught up in the.
Did you say peepholes on doors? That sounds a little creepy. You know that,
it
right?
Does sound really creepy. They were an interesting pair. I think one of the reasons Lagoons didn't last too long and the original owners were forced out was that they considered it like kind of party time versus basically saying how do we really monetize this idea.
Interesting. So you got College World Series coming up, just like Jeff just talked about. Of course, there will be high demand for Nebraska football tickets in the fall just because of the coaching change.
We'll see.
Are you not seeing it yet?
I know that we had some inclement weather yesterday, and I get that. That game should have been sold out. There's no reason that game shouldn't have been sold out.
I was actually a little surprised. There was, quote unquote, Bill Callahan era, we had a couple of 80,000.
Yeah. How many people were there yesterday?
Was it 60?
66 is what they reported, but that's not what was scanned because a lot of people said, spent $10-20 on this ticket. I'm not going to sit out in the freezing cold watch practice. And so basically when Pelini came in, that was a sold-out game. When Frost came in, sold-out game. And, I think that, people are really kind of being a little cautious.
There's a show me aspect here. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it's like I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times now, and basically the outcome is always the same. And Dr. Rob, one of my questions I had for you was, do you have a problem with whether it's basketball, football, or whatever, hiring a coach that got fired from his last job?
I don't, because it's everybody. Everybody gets shit canned in that business at some point.
True.
Now, are you thinking like Rule in particular?
I'm thinking of Rule and then Hoiberg. I mean, I had a couple of people that they were really willing to, pay money to erect a statue of Hoiberg, before he even coached a game. And so, I have a problem, I guess, or a concern. I have a concern. And basically, Coach Rule, Trev, everybody, they're all singing Kumbaya, saying the right things. But, we're having a lot of...
I totally hear what you're saying. The one pass that I'm going to give Rule is that one of the things I have always firmly believed in, and this is 100% pre-Rule, by the way. There's NFL coaches and there's college coaches. And there's very, very, very few guys who can bridge between the two. Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith is an NFL guy. He is an NFL D coordinator. He's an okay NFL head coach, but that's an NFL guy. They brought him in, coach of Illinois, and all I could think was like, well, he'll be okay. He'll be kind of mediocre there at best. He's going to get a bunch of recruits because people are like, oh, my God, this guy was with the Bears, or I'm going to go play for him. And so he did some great recruiting, just could never quite put it all together on the field. Callahan at Nebraska, he's an NFL guy, just not going to click in college. You look at the opposite of it. Lou Holtz went to the NFL, crashed and burned. Steve Spurrier went to the NFL, crashed and burned. Nick Saban, the guy who will probably go down in history as arguably
the greatest college football coach ever.
The greatest. It's kind of hard to make an argument against it.
Yeah.
It really is. crashed, and he couldn't wait to get out of the NFL. He was when the Alabama gig opened up, and he was able to jump ship and get out of Miami. He was so damn happy. It was ridiculous. That was the greatest thing ever. Urban Meyer crashed and burned in the NFL. It's funny because I got a friend who asked me. He was just like, he goes, "Hey, what's the deal with Jason Peter? Why does he hate Rule so much?" And I'm like, because he's an NFL guy and he's a Carolina Panther. And all those guys freaking hate Rule because that when you see a quote unquote college guy go to the NFL, like most people are like, dude, this is a joke. Pete Carroll got a pass when he went back to the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks, and the reason he got a pass is because he'd been a reasonably solid, reasonably well-respected NFL coach before he went to USC.
But not successful. I mean, he was at the Patriots. He did okay.
He did okay, but I mean, okay at the NFL is pretty damn good.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of one of those, hey, climb to the peak get to the mountaintop.
Okay.
Get to the highest level in your profession, and if you're doing okay at the highest level of your profession, guess what? You're pretty damn good. So, I mean, the only other guy that I would put out there and say, like, okay, here's a guy who excelled at both outside of Pete Carroll, maybe Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson's one of the few other guys that I can think of. Did well at Oklahoma State, did well at Miami, went to the Dallas Cowboys, Miami Dolphins, was great with both. He's one of the few guys, although I think he kind of ran the college teams like an NFL team. But it's just, that thing I don't worry about. Now, does that mean Rule's great? No. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm pretty guarded, but it has my guarding in terms of being overly optimistic about how Rule's going to do at Nebraska has far, far more to just do with we've watched so many guys crash and burn here. Mike Riley, Scott Frost, et cetera. I'm not going to get overly hyped up until I see how they do this fall. It has nothing to do with how he did with the Panthers because, like I said, anytime I see a guy that I sort of gauge as a college guy go to the NFL, the thought that always goes through my head is like, well, yeah, this shit ain't going to work.
And let me defend Hoiberg just a little bit, and that is, the COVID year ruined him that first year, right? But really, you go back and look at the injuries he had to deal with, and I think there were some miscalculations. When he succeeded at Iowa State, he had T.J. Otzelberger, and T.J. Otzelberger's done a really good job at Iowa State.
I think that made a huge difference.
Yeah. Now, he coached his ass off this year. Hoiberg coached his ass off this year. Next year's going to be – you got to keep going up, right? I mean, the jury's still out on him. I still think Hoiberg was better than – just because he's a better person than Scott Frost, at least on the outside.
Damn, look at you dropping that.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying Scott's not working on his person. I'm just saying sometimes things get away from you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody goes through ups and downs in life. We've all been there at some point.
Which, again, it's one of those, it's easy to pick on Hoiberg.
Yes.
At the same time, too, here's another guy who's done, okay. At the highest level of the game. He's at Power 5 basketball school.
Bulls fans will tell you that he didn't do okay at the highest level,
I'll give you that.
But he also had to work for Jerry Krause and John Paxson and Guy Foreman, which was a horrible front office. There's so many things that go into the pro aspect of it. Before we let you go, Chad, of course, College World Series coming up, Nebraska football tickets. What are some of the big concerts coming up that people can get a hold of? And by the way, now with tickets for less, you always could before, but you mentioned that network. You can get any sporting event really or concert around the country. Right?
Yeah, we have a bigger reach than we've ever had before, and that allows us to have more inventory than we've ever had before. And one of the things that we're really working on is the relationships. So, even if Nebraska has an off year, we hope that they don't. But if it's Nebraska, Iowa State, Alabama, whomever, we're always a buyer on things. And so it might not be exactly the dollar figure that you're looking for, but if you have season tickets and you can't make it all 7 games down in Lincoln, I mean, give us a call like now, and we can make you an offer on whatever you're looking for. Concert-wise, I mean, the biggest surprise is Taylor Swift, hands down by far. Not because she's not popular, because she is, but she's playing stadiums for 3 nights in a row, and that's in our business and the ticket business, that's just unheard of. And so if people are looking for Taylor Swift tickets, if they're looking for MLB tickets, playoff tickets for basketball, whatever, want to go to the Masters next year, give us a call. We're happy to help. And our phone, even though the office is changing, phone number stays the same.
Which is?
402-398-1999.
There you go. Chad Carr from Tickets for Less. Thanks, buddy. Always good catching up with you.
Same here, guys.
All right. Rob, you kind of helped me out this weekend, by the way, because for the longest time on this podcast, Iowa fans have taken a beating. And now it seems
I took them to the other black and gold team.
So now, what was going on with the Colorado stuff all weekend? All week? I didn't quite get what was going on.
The very first thing that happened. So Matt Rule had a press conference, and it was just his normal post-practice press conference, and it was the day the transfer portal opened back up.
Okay.
So the transfer portal opens back up. So guess what he's getting asked about in the press conference?
Transfer portal.
Transfer portal. So a reporter asks him a question about the transfer portal, and Rule's answer was essentially, hey, we've got a lot of people thinking about he goes, we got people worried about recruiting, about the transfer portal. What I'm excited about, what I'm fired up about, I'm not worried about the transfer portal. I'm excited about coaching my guys, the guys we've got here, the guys we're coaching right now during spring ball. That's where my focus is at. Well, earlier the same day, in reference to the transfer portal, since it opened up, Deion Sanders puts out another one of his "I ain't hard to find" tweets. Well,
and that's his brand right now. He's got shirts.
Totally is. Yeah. So that's his thing. I ain't hard to find. Was it Shakur Sanders, his son, who's the quarterback?
Yeah.
His brother, Deion's older son, has it's like a social media and video production company. They put out a video on Deion and recruiting and Colorado football. And so since all of this stuff happened the same day, so Matt Rule did not say anything about Deion Sanders, Colorado, the Buffaloes, the Pac-12 or Big 12 conferences. He said nothing. All he said, he was asked about the transfer portal, and his answer to the question about the transfer portal was basically, I'm not excited about the transfer portal. I'm excited about coaching the guys we've got here in Lincoln right now. That's what he said.
And Colorado fans.
A writer, the Athlon beat writer for Colorado.
Athlon's still around?
Athlon is still around.
Didn't know that.
So, well, Kavanaugh writes for Athlon for Nebraska. He follows us on Twitter.
Okay.
So he and I have done some Twitter discussions about Husker football. So, anyway, Kavanaugh is the Athlon guy for Nebraska. This Athlon dude, the beat writer for Athlon for Colorado, he cuts out the clip of Rule's press conference where he says, I'm not excited about the transfer portal. I'm excited about, I'm excited about coaching the guys we've got in Lincoln right now. He takes that clip from the press conference. Again, nobody said anything about Colorado or Prime or the Buffs or Ralphie or whatever, but this Athlon guy takes that clip and goes, and kind of does the whole like Fox News thing where they're like, a lot of media missed it, but Matt Rule takes a subtle shot at Coach Prime and his recruiting.
Oh, God. So
now, like I said, Rule didn't say jack shit about Prime or Colorado or anything. He was just like, hey, portal open today, Coach Rule. What do you think of the transfer portal? Rule was like, I'm not worried about the portal. I'm worried about coaching the guys we got in Lincoln. Zero.
People are always looking for something.
Yes, there was zero to do with Colorado. Rule didn't reference Colorado, didn't intend to reference Colorado. This Athlon guy's like, I need clicks bad because guess what? We suck, and the only thing we have is Deion Sanders right now, and we're going to probably get our ass kicked this next fall. We're going to go 3-9, and that's just the way it is, but I need clicks so somebody will read this. So he puts out this total clickbait Twitter article.
And people bite.
People bit harder in hell, and so a few people bid on it. A couple of other news stations bid on those bites. And then, pardon the interruption.
Yeah.
Wilbon, Tony.
Yeah.
They pick up on it. And again, they run the same clip, and Michael Wilbon goes on like this 10-minute rant on how he uses the word sanctimonious, how sanctimonious Matt Rule is for taking this blatant, completely obvious, known to everybody shot at Deion Sanders. And like the whole time, Nebraska fans, and I guarantee you Matt Rule doesn't give a rat's ass about it one way or another.
Most coaches don't.
They don't. But it's one of those things where all Nebraska fans are going like, nobody said jack shit about Colorado. Where are you guys getting this? And so it kind of blew up into this thing where, and so then you got these Twitter fights, Nate, like going on all week long between Nebraska and Colorado fans, and Nebraska fans are like, show us where Rule said anything about Deion Prime recruiting Colorado, and they're like, right here, Tony Kornheiser and Michael Wilbon, and they're like, no. They're commenting on the comments, but nobody actually said anything. Where is Rule? Show me the quote where Rule actually says anything, and it's not out there because he never did. It was this dude from Athlon who was like, I need clicks freaking bad because we don't have anything else to write about.
Or he could have been asked to do it because, hear me out here. Have you watched the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN? It's phenomenal.
Not the Last Dance.
Yeah, not the
Netflix one.
You should watch it because it talks about how Michael would fabricate rivalries in his brain just to motivate him. Like they didn't exist.
Oh, it was like me doing the pipe cutter thing with Colorado.
Yeah. I mean, but some people need that fabricated rivalry to like bring them to maybe.
No, and I totally get. Well, and that's like right now, Colorado's biggest rival is who?
Nebraska.
No, it's Colorado State.
Okay.
But that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all they have. But I mean, who on a national level gives a rat's ass about Colorado versus Colorado State? Nobody does.
And the Pac-12 has been nothing but a disaster for Colorado.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like Oklahoma, Texas. Nationally, that's kind of a thing. Dude, Clemson, Florida State, Florida, Florida State, Miami. People kind of pay attention to that. Notre Dame against anybody that they consider a rival. Michigan State, USC. Those are rivalries that have national implications when it comes to fan interest. Nobody cares about Colorado.
You're right.
Right now, they kind of do, but for no reason other than the fact it's Deion Sanders. They are going to they're going to try and ride that as long and as hard as they can. I see it lasting 2 years. He's either going to suck ass for 2 years and get fired or leave because he sucks there, or he's going to win and he's going to go Mel Tucker on him.
I want to get one more in because you tweeted this out yesterday, and I think people thought it was for real. Chris Hassel, who I'm a friend of, used to work at WHO-TV in Des Moines. He's now at CBS Sports in down in Florida.
Dude, Chris Hassel crushes it every time.
So, but people thought he did the Carl Pepper punting coordinator for Iowa. And people thought he was ripping on Iowa. I think people need to understand a couple things about Chris Hassel. Chris Hassel is one of the biggest Iowa fans.
He's a huge Hawkeye.
Yes, huge Hawkeye fan. and many people think
But that is funny shit,
no,
though.
but see, that's why I like about his fandom, because when fans can pick on their own and do parodies, it makes it. It means you don't take it as serious. I mean, you want your team to win. But so many people thought that was real, that somebody was ripping Iowa. And he was ripping Iowa. But if you want to know who Chris Hassel is, if you're listening to this podcast, he's also Cooter Ray Cornholer. I don't know if you've ever seen the bits of Cooter Ray Cornholer, but yeah, it was a classic parody video.
Oh, the best was, it's like, oh, well, if it's in such and such situation, down and distance, well, we won't punt, but we will get our we'll get our defensive scoring unit out there. So.
Well, he goes. We actually have this new punter that specializes in 12 to 13 yard punts.
Pooch punts. What did he say, from New Zealand?
Yes, from New Zealand. But that was good stuff. But yeah, man, just a fast podcast at Kros Strain in La Vista. It's been an absolute wonderful time. We've had some really good beer that we've been able to drink.
The beer's always good.
And Dr. Rob, I'm going to let you sober up because I know it's been a long weekend for you. Thanks for coming out today, buddy.
I'm hungry for hot dogs now. I need Willie Dog here.
I'm kind of with you. Thanks to Connor Orr from Orr and Horrigan. If you need a lawyer, a litigator, a defense attorney, personal injury, or if you're doing some NIL stuff, Connor Orr can help you out. He was supposed to be here today. He didn't show up. He blew us off. Can you believe that?
He told us he had something going on. He let us know.
Also, I want to thank Jeff Hardy from Kros Strain Brewing for having us out, stopping by and talking to us about the wonderful beer at Kros Strain. Next time you are looking for some Nebraska craft beer or just beer in general, buy Kros Strain. It's good stuff. Chad Carr from Tickets for Less. It's still hard for me to do. I still want to say Ticket Express, but it's ticketsforless.com. When you need Husker tickets, College World Series tickets, concert tickets, Tickets for Less is where you can go. Scott Strunk from Husker Hound's supposed to stop out, but he didn't do it. He's got a lacrosse tournament. He's a dad. He's
a busy man.
He's got like 30 kids, so he has to take care of them all.
Well, and he hooked us up for our event on Friday night. So
good.
We had a lot of merch that all kind of came from Scott.
That's really good stuff. And of course, our good friends at Betfred Sports. When you're ready to place your bet, download the Betfred Sports app. If you're in Eastern Iowa, just drive over to the state of Iowa and place that first bet. Open account for $50. Get $111 in Fred bets instantaneously. If you're in Western Nebraska, drive over to Colorado because Betfred is also in Colorado. If you want to know where Betfred is located and where you can bet with Betfred, go to betfredsports.com. For Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. Big thanks to my son, Owen Justice, producing and directing the YouTube video today. And check it out. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're only like 50 people shy of 2,000 subscribers. It's been growing, and people are watching the videos, which is really cool. And big thanks to Husker Max as well for distributing the audio portion of this podcast. We'll talk to you next time on the Doc Talk Podcast, presented by Betfred Sports.